Well, it is 2026. We all officially made it. Well done, everybody. So, over the course of this year, we're going to convert my Nissan 350Z into a full Rachel Teller Need for Speed Underground 2 tribute. I need to figure out a way of changing all the designs on my gauges, my underglow colour, my headlight colour, all of the menu options for the stuff inside this video game car. I need a way of being able to change it. So I've been thinking about where I could hide a fun little menu screen. Now, obviously, the first choice is the sun visor, but I'm going to be putting HDMI screens in there so we can play Need for Speed in the car. Yes, we're bringing back Pimp My Ride style installs. So where else could I put a fun little screen? Well, in the headliner in the 350Z, you've got this little thing which has the two lights, but it also has a space to hold your sunglasses. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool to have it so this could pop down or, reveal a screen and have it appear out of the ceiling? That'd be super cool. But in doing that, it means it's going to be like up and away, and I have pretty strong negative feelings towards touchscreens in general. So how could I change the menu on that screen in a cool way, considering it's a video game tribute build? Why don't I use a PlayStation 3 6-axis controller that connects to that screen, so when I press and turn this on, the screen motorized drops from the ceiling. I can control all my menu stuff that I need, and then press another button, this turns off, and it disappears back into the ceiling. It would give it that real video game vibe. I can style it, obviously, like the Need for Speed game, and it means I forgo having to use a touchscreen, which, again, strong negative feelings. So that's what we're going to do in this video. Figure out if it's even possible to connect this 6-axis to an ESP32. I'm pretty sure I've seen it done before, so I think that's doable. And then fabricate something new for this. I want to have it all motorized, so I might have to remake the entire thing. Not quite sure yet. We'll get to that bit second. First up, need to do some research and see if I can get this to talk to this. If so, this thing's a go. What a weird combination of super simple and royal pain in the ass it's been connecting this controller to the ESP32. But despite a few things trimming me up along the way, I am now able to press the buttons and the D-pad and shoulders, and everything can see all the commands get thrown out in my serial print, which means I can do what I want with this. So next step is just boot up Need for Speed Underground 2. It's always nice to have an excuse. Take some screenshots of some various menu and UI designs and replicate something on this small screen for the stuff that I want to change in the car. So time to throw together some stuff in Illustrator. Easy. Why do I always say easy? And it never ends up being easy. There's always something. So I've got to code all of this and put it onto my little screen. I'm using a Waveshare ESP32 S3 LCD5, and I've already connected it up to this separate one, which is the receiver for my remote control. But whilst coding the design, making it actually functional, I also need to consider how it's going to receive and send data into my micro canvas. All of the devices that I've created for my car, so my underglow controller and my gauges and everything, all connect to a private micro canvas in order to isolate it both from the car, so I don't negatively affect anything in the car's ECU, and also from other people. As anybody who's ever put like underglow or interior glow lights or something like that in their car before will be able to attest, if you go to a car meet, pretty much everybody uses the same one or two apps to control those lights. So if you've got some stranger who's sat around near your car who wants to change their car's underglow to red, they often inadvertently end up changing everybody's underglow to red who's in the vicinity. It's because they all run off a shared system. It's not particularly secure or isolated. And so I want to make sure, especially given that this Canvas network is connected to my car's network, that it is isolated and that it is accessible by only me. Just as it's important that when I use my computer or when I use my phone, it's only me that gets to decide who sees that data. Much like it meaning my remote control on my phone is the only thing that is able to control the gauges on my car, is to safeguard it from bad agents, outside influencers. And it's especially important at the moment here in the UK and in the US and a lot of other countries around the world where government overreach is happening widespread, and some geriatric politician is able to decide what you are and aren't allowed to do on the internet. And it's why I use ExpressVPN in order to safeguard my computer and my phone and all of my other devices in exactly the same way that I'm building these things with safeguards in place to protect my car. Using ExpressVPN is genuinely effortless. It's just one button, protects all of my devices. Plus, then my government doesn't get to tell me what I can and cannot use the internet for. Like without it, I can't use Imager. Imager! If you go to this URL here or use this QR code, you'll be able to get yourself an extra 4 months of ExpressVPN. So go check it out if you're concerned about security or you just want to watch Netflix in another location. I'll admit, America's catalogue is much better than what we've got here in the UK. So with all that in mind, I need to take these designs, code them for the screen. It's going to be a lot of work though, a lot of code, and no vibe coding, just coding in vibes. Cue the montage that makes like a week of work look like I did it in 30 minutes. This one's going to take a while. Well, I'm basically done with the first iteration at least, and I'm sure you're itching to see this thing working, so I've got it all connected up. All of the devices are connected by this canvas loop, much like they will be in the car, which distributes both the canvas and the power signal in between them all. The 5-inch rectangular screen actually already has a canvas transceiver built into it, so that one was dead easy to connect up to this canvas loop. The P4 round boards, however, don't have an integrated canvas transceiver, so I hit up my very good friends over at PCBWay, and I made this little board. Is the Power and Canvas ESP32 header, and it just attaches onto the back of these boards as I've got behind this one, and allows me to use this same power and canvas daisy chain that I'm using in the rest of the system. They work perfectly. Huge thanks to PCBWay, as always, for providing me with those boards. If you do want to get PCBs made definitely go and check out the link in my description. You'll get $5 off your first purchase. The service is super easy to use. Just upload your design onto the instant quote page, fill out the options you want, click save, and you're done. I've worked with PCBWay for a long time now, and they've been consistently fantastic. So let's take a look. Turn it on, and on come all of my screens. We've got the main speedo gauge, the large one, and then the 3 mini gauges which are going in the center console. The left one is oil temperature, center one coolant temperature, and the one on the right is a speedo fuel meter. It's really these 3 which inherit the Need for Speed style design, and at the moment it's set to its default mode, which is the Griffin design with a white background, white highlights as they're called, so the white ticks, and a white needle, and that is consistent across all 3 of them. Currently the remote does nothing, but if I power it on, it'll connect, which connects it to this ESP device, and then pressing the buttons on here will start to move things on the screen because it's distributing the commands to this CAN bus network. So technically all of these devices are able to see these inputs too. So if I did want to do some other stuff and have these directly control the gauges rather than having to go through the menu screen, I can do that, and we will do that just down the line. For now, let me show you what this menu screen looks like. First one is custom gauges, then we've got neons and then lights. I've tried to keep this so it looks as much like the original Need for Speed menu as possible. If we start in lights, I've made a version of the 350Z with the Mantis body kit, so it's going to look like what the car is going to look like several months from now, spoiler alert. And at the moment it's in white, which is the second option. If I go up, it'll turn it off. And then I can come down to a range of different colors. These will be setting the colors that my headlights change to. That's something that's coming down the line. I need to build some custom headlights for that first. Clicking circle, we go back out, and we can go into neons. So X to go in. We've got 3 options here, as you might have seen in the design section. The underglow one is one that exists in the game, but interior glow and starlights don't. So I had to use Blender to take some screenshots of the car in various positions in order to then make my own iconography for it. Underglow brings up a picture of the car, and then as we scroll down, we go through that same selection of colors. So we could set this to however we want. And then usually when I press X, it will send it to the car, which basically means it's sending that choice to the CAN bus network. At the moment, there is no underglow connected to this network, so it doesn't do anything. But when it's out in the car, it'll connect to my underglow CAN bus controller, and it will actually do some changes. It's very, very similar with interior glow. We've got showing it underneath the dashboard, same kind of thing. And then for the starlights, so my starlight headliner, again, runs through a bunch of different designs. So these just all change a single color and then distribute it onto the CAN bus network. The one I'm sure you're dying to see is the custom gauges. We've got 3 designs currently: Griffin, Flames, and Tabby. The 3 best ones. So we go up and down and we're moving through these designs. Let's start with Flames. If you click X, then exactly like the game, we get this color picker. All these colors are directly from the game. Let's say we want a orange background with red highlights and then a yellow needle. So that's what we want it to look like. X, and it sends it to all of my devices. So these now have the flame style background with the red highlights and the yellow needle. Again, if we come back into here, if we go to Tabby, let's go for a, let's keep the background white with a light blue highlight and a yellow needle. There you go. And it updates to all of the screens again. And obviously, these now all save as stored within the gauges. So if you turn the car off and then turn the car back on again, they boot up with that design saved. So now I can turn on this controller and play at my heart's desire, at least within the bounds of those 3 designs, for what I want it to look like. You can make some definitely trashy designs by utilizing poor color combinations, but I'll be honest, I'm a man of simplicity. Give me a white background and maybe a couple of colors, something like that. Griffin with a white background, cyan highlights and a yellow needle. Clutch design. So at this point, I'm happy with what this screen does. It does sufficient. There are obviously other things that I still need it to be able to do. I want to be able to come into Gauge Designs, press a trigger button or something like that, and have miles per hour and kilometers an hour switch. Relatively easy, but I've got to diverge from the original game design in order to do that. But this first iteration has already taken over a week, considering I had to create all of the iconography from scratch, code everything, by myself, and have it interact with everything correctly. Yeah, it's taken a bit of time. So we'll get to that other stuff in the next iteration of that. More importantly, right now, I need, where is it? To get on with this bit. I'm figuring out the mechanism for this and how this is going to descend from the ceiling. My idea, broadly speaking, is that turn this on, it'll use a relay to turn this screen on, which then also uses a servo or a motor or something, I'm not quite sure on the mechanism yet, to descend it from the ceiling. And then I'll need to put something in as well that when I press and hold the PlayStation button, it'll turn it all off and return it to the ceiling. Creating the actual base shape and having these lights being able to reinstalled in there, I don't think that's going to be too difficult. The mechanism, not quite sure how that's going to work, because I'll be honest, I haven't made a lot of mechanisms for 3D printing, so I'm gonna have to figure that out as we go. So that's the next step. Cue another week of work, I guess. So with this thing detached, I can now see exactly how it works. Basically, the light, which is the only part that I'm keeping, has got 4 push clip things. And there's obviously a recess in here. So this just pushes in and then clips into place. Super simple. That bit I can replicate, and I need to make sure I've got something like this bar with this foam bit on the top, because that'll push against basically the roof of the car, so that when you're pushing in the lights and everything, you're pushing against something. But this bit, the bit that drops down the sunglasses bit, at the moment when you press the button, it releases it, and we've got a cog on one side, which I believe works as a dampener, just to make sure it doesn't go plop, just fall down. And then on the other side, we've got a spring, which it gives it that initial pop. And I think if I try to replace all that with an electronic rack and pinion or a motor driven hinge or something like that, I'm adding failure points where they don't necessarily need to be them in something that is so simple. So instead, what I'm going to do is just have another button kind of like this, and then use a couple of torque hinges, which are hinges which stay in whatever position you open it out to. And then just have it maybe with the spring, a bit like I've got here. So when I press the button, the spring gives it a tiny little bit of pop, and then I just pull it down to the position I want, and it will stay there with the torque spring. And then I can push it back up and it will clip into place. It removes those failure points, makes everything a little bit easier. I think is going to mean that I can get a result much faster. Fortunately, this isn't super huge. It's about 20 by 20 centimeters, so I can print the prototype at least on my Anycubic Cobra S1. I do have a very fancy SLA printer coming, which I will probably reprint this on in the final thing, because then I can add texturing and all that kind of stuff. But for now, for the prototype, should be perfectly fine. So need to model this. I'll do that in Fusion 360, get some prototypes printed, make sure everything fits together, and then we're basically all the way there. So let's do a little bit of measuring and modeling, and then the rest I'm sure we'll just figure out as we go. So I've been working on this 3D model for a little bit, and I've got the piece tested that the light would go into. It needed a little bit of tweaking here and there, but that would fit in there all good. But I've been simulating how this screen is going to come out of the ceiling. So we've got this little hinge here, which will allow it to rotate, get to about there. That's its viewing angle where it would stop, and then you could push it back into the roof again. It's supposed to be reasonably aesthetic and, you know, pretty looking, and I think that's my problem right now. It isn't. You know, you look at this original piece and it is built for the part. It's clean, obviously, except for this one's cracked up, but this one wouldn't be going in a car anyway. But it's purposeful and it aesthetically fits. This doesn't give me that same level of joy. Like, you need this cut out over here in order to give it space to rotate into. It's just like, it's not quite perfect. Now I could potentially replace this hinge with maybe a like curved ratchet track and then have cogs that go along that, and instead of it flapping down it could like slide. But again, that's adding a lot of complexity into a piece that I don't think requires that kind of complexity, at least not when it's up in the ceiling. So I think I'm going to make the executive decision at this point not to put it in the ceiling at all, because not only do I not quite like the design, but something else has happened in the meantime that I think is going to be a better solution. If you've seen my video where I make a custom OEM looking head unit with modern functionality in it just because I hate touchscreens, and if you haven't, I will put it here. You should definitely go check it out after this. A lot of people on the comments for that video said, did you know that Pioneer and Blaupunkt have started making modern head units that look retro, no touchscreen, just all the functionality? And included in that list of messages was Pioneer, who have sent me their new modern head unit that looks retro. So I want to put that in a car. Thing is, I have a double DIN space and the stereo is only a single DIN, which means I've got a second slot, which is currently unused. So what if we went full made famous by Fast and Furious Paul Walker, slide out, flip up screen that comes out of the dashboard in the second slot right above the head unit, and did that instead? Not only would it be like super period correct, because those flip up screens were fantastic in like the early noughties, but it means I can then do the mechanical side and have it slide out and then flip up in an automatic way and build all the mechanism for that. So for now, the software works, but the hardware doesn't, and that's okay. I'm putting a small pin in it because this video has taken long enough already, and we'll come back to it in a future video very, very soon, where we install that new Pioneer head unit, take a look at that, see how that integrates with the entire new custom Rachel livery interior that I'm going to have to build for the car, and at the same time build all the integration for this. And that's also hopefully the same time that we're going to start getting all of these gauges in, because the whole custom interior kind of has to be done in one go. So if we could just stop raining outside for 1 minute, maybe I could start to get on with that. So I know it may be slightly anticlimactic, but that's where we're going to leave this video for now. We've got all the software done, super happy with that, looks really cool. This next bit we'll tackle really soon. Hope something really good happens to you today, and I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy, peeps. Bye bye.